But my last question for you is, if you could ask Joe Gissy one thing, what do you want to know about me?
Oh man. No, I love understanding like how people got on a path, like, because I know that my path started when I was a kid. And so I feel like a lot of people, a lot of people have a lot more influence about what they do in life, and the menu that they're choosing off of, is set for them kind of early in life in a lot of ways. And it's good and bad. But, you know, I'm just kind of curious how your kind of you as a kid, if you were to say, okay, how does me as a kid lead to me right now? Like how do you draw that line? How do you connect the dots between kind of like you growing up and like what was influence over you? And, if I asked that, like if some kid fell in love with like cars when they were a kid and they became a car designer, it'd be an easy kind of like, connect the dots thing. But I'm kind of curious, you as a kid, like what were the things that happened to you or that you kind of, when you were growing up, that kind of led to where you are today?
So I have a question for you. Do you have 5 minutes? Because I know we're scheduled
Yeah,
for
no,
30.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll tell you a little bit then. I'll try not to make it 10 minutes. So my dad, I tell the story, I've told this in workshops and seminars. He started capital management in our basement. I mean, he worked for another firm, and then him and a good buddy of his decided they wanted to be advisors, and they went out on their own. And I remember it was like a piece of plywood. It was like two filing cabinets, and he had his telephone in there. And I remember that as like it was a unfinished portion of the basement when he originally started this business. And then he eventually got an office outside of the house, and then we moved to a new house, and he built an in-house office. So he had actually kind of done the at home, away from home. When we was at home, I saw people walking around to our walk-in basement into his office. He would see people at our house, or he would go to lunch, and so he started that in 1986, and I was born in 81. So, I mean, ever since I was little, I saw that. My mom has also been an entrepreneur her whole life. She's done multiple different ventures with my stepdad and her. They've done all kinds of different things, from building homes, which they're really good at. They're good at that's why I'm not flipping a home, but I'm working on my own house right now.
Right.
Probably because of them. I saw how they could actually build their own home. They would build subdivisions and all that stuff. And then they've done other things throughout their life. She actually built one really interesting company that had to deal with oil rigs and EPA like plans, disaster plans.
Okay.
And they built a business that ended up being, a couple $1 million business, and they ended up selling that business, and that was in Oklahoma. So I kind of saw that trajectory. I guess I was around that, kind of like to your point, so I was kind of seeing that people have done their own thing. My first, business venture would have been, I got a story for you at another time, but the first business venture, and you can call it a pyramid scheme or network marketing, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I got into, I just remember this was with selling long distance services.
Okay.
And, I watched their video, and the video is like, if you recruit, X amount of people, you can make money off what they do. And I'm like,
right.
What? This is crazy. And
it's so exciting.
I was in high school. So I was like, this is amazing. I wanted to break records, and I found out like, the record at the time was like opening up 10 lines of service in under 5 hours. Well, my dad had a business, and he had 4 lines because he had like a fax, an internet line, and that his business line, and a home line. And then I called my mom. She had like 2 lines, and I was adding it up. I go, I can do this. I'm going to open up 10 lines in 30 minutes. And I did that. And that was like the success story. And everybody was like, wow, look at this kid. He's amazing. He did 10 lines of, long distance service in under 30 minutes, and I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. And then of course, all my buddies had to come join. Right. And I made like a little commission, and I probably that summer made like $3,000. Right. But it was like you said,
it's a lot. Right. I mean, yeah, the first time you make $3,000, it might as well be 300 grand. There's no difference. Like, I mean, it's just like, it's a big difference than, having, a little bit of allowance, or a little bit of, your parents are giving you a few $100 a month to pay for your dorm room. It's so yeah. It's
this is high school too. So that was
high school.
Probably like junior year, and then senior year, my little brother got into Cutco knives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I actually jumped into that, but he already got the family. So I had to go with my own friend network and sell knives. And then in college, I was always looking for things to do. I mean, like I had multiple jobs, always looking to start something, kind of like I didn't know what I was going to start, but I knew I'd start something. I ended up, I had to tell my dad this years later because he thought I moved to LA to be an actor. And that was like, it was kind of like one of those things where I was like, well, if it happens, that's cool. But if it doesn't, I don't really care. I'm actually coming out here because it's a big city and I want to get out of St. Louis and I want to try to make it in a bigger city, you know, and do it. And I started this is right as MySpace was blowing up. MySpace had like 30,000 users and they had that online community. So I created a community for actors, models, and musicians. And I was on like Craigslist, putting ads left and right, you know, every morning for a few hours just to get new users. And I ended up with like 3,000 users, which was that was pretty big, but didn't really have a good, you know, technical background. I wasn't the one designing the community or the site. We outsourced that overseas. We ended up getting sued by the largest company, Breakdown Services, or I got a cease and desist letter. And because we started using breakdowns that we were getting off this guy on the streets, like, here's where all the actors can go auditions. And we're like, cool, we'll put those on our website. So that way these talents can go do the same thing. Cause we were trying to help them out. Right. And that scared me because this guy knocks on my door and throws me this letter and I'm going, oh, so that ended that company for me.
Yeah.
I went back to then working at the time I was working at Anheuser-Busch and then I ended up working at Monster Energy.
What's interesting about what you're saying is, you know, I don't think people realize how much influence, maybe they do, maybe I don't realize it. And maybe I'm just, and everybody else does, but you know, how much influence you have, how much your upbringing and what your parents do has an influence on what you do. And then how much of what you do is going to influence what your kids do. And the fact that you're in life, we feel like we're kind of choosing from a bunch of options, but really we're choosing from the options that are in front of us. I like to think of it as like we're ordering off a menu. Like what menu you're presented with is going to determine kind of what you order for dinner that night. And it's not like you're ordering off an infinite menu. It's kind of what you know to be out there as options for you. And you say, yeah, maybe my childhood kind of had a lot of impact on that. And you're saying my parents were flipping houses and now I'm fixing up my house and my dad was a financial advisor. Now I'm, building a financial advisory business. So clearly huge impact. And it's kind of cool to connect to generations in that way. Like it feels very old school where like you're, back in the day, like you'd have like the same job as your parents and your last name would be, Goldsmith because you're a goldsmith. And then like, I think it's kind of, there's still more connection to what our parents did than maybe we really recognize. And, anyways, that was my one question for you was how your upbringing kind of impacted where you ended up today, which sounds like a major impact on him.
Well, let me tell you this one last thing here. I didn't want to get into finance because I wanted to do my own thing, right?
Yep.
That was my major task. I only got into finance because at the time I was working at Monster and I went to the seminar and TD Ameritrade was doing this thing where they were selling their program on how to buy and sell options and trading. I went to that, I learned how to do it. And then I started getting into trading basically. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up this is like 2009. I called my dad and go, well, what is it you actually do? And I started having a conversation with him. And then slowly over time, I started getting into it until I realized.
But isn't it funny? Like, so yeah, technically you'd say, if you were just kind of in the moment, you'd be like, I'm not doing this because of my dad. Like I saw this TD Ameritrade thing and I wanted to do options trading and I got into that. And then I reached out to my dad. But if you really zoom out, like there's gotta be some, part of you that was more open to that TD Ameritrade options trading idea because of how you grew up and because of what you saw your dad doing and because of your familiarity with it. Even at the moment you might've been too deep in the forest to, in the trees to see the forest. It's not totally unrelated. And, anyways, I just find it, interesting to think about how we land where we land.
Well, I think that's probably a good stopping point. We went 6 over on your calendar.
No, it's great. Flies by,
Yeah,
it really does.
That was fun. Well, Jake,
a lot of fun.
We'll do it again some other time. I'm going to have to get you to connect me with Kevin. And at least
the trifecta, the Signal Advisors, co-founders trifecta. It sounds like you got your first leg of the stool here. You got Pat coming up next, and then you can have Kevin Batten third cleanup here when you get to it. But we all have kind of different backgrounds, different experiences, and I think that's what'll hopefully help this company be successful.
I think what would be fun, I just thought of this too, is if we put a little panel together down the road. So, depending upon how many people subscribe and start watching, but then having like a panel discussion, over entrepreneurship and just stuff like that, and letting people ask questions. I think that would be fun. That's what makes it more fun.
Yeah, I love the spontaneous. I love the spontaneousness of it and answering people's questions about entrepreneurship. I love entrepreneurship, love startups, it doesn't feel like work. So would love to be on a panel or do whatever you've got cooking. So count me in.
Sounds good, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, Jake. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Great talking to you, Joe.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.